So you don't want to miss Reverend Robin next week. One more announcement. Uh, we've got quite a few people out who are out ill today. And my phone kept blowing up yesterday afternoon. Well, this one's not going to be here, and this one's not going to be here, and this. And dang, that Cindy Balkstra texts, and she says, "'Tis the season of the crud." So I just want to remind everybody, when it comes to the crud, sharing is not caring. We love you. Please stay home and heal. Okay? We can love you from afar until you are better. So we want to hold our community in prayer, all of those who have the crud. Okay? All right. Let's get started. How many cooks do we have here today? Cooks. We have cooking people. I know we do. Because I've been here I'm in my fourth year, so I know we have some good cooks here at Unity of Gainesville. And I enjoy telling people that the test of a true church is not the quality of their theology, it is the quality of their potlucks. So if anyone ever talks to you about Unity of Gainesville and says, you guys aren't a real church, invite them to a potluck. I call it culinary conversion therapy. Yeah. Now, I like playing in the kitchen too sometimes. Not if it's expected, not if the meal is expected, but I like to play. And emphasis is on the word play. So what that means is I find a recipe that interests me. I pull the ingredients together. I pour a glass or two of red wine, and I have at it. 95% of the time, whatever comes out is edible. It never looks like the picture in the recipe book, never, but it's edible. The other 5% of the time, what I do is I take that mess and I mix it with a bunch of egg whites and I call it a frittata. Because, frittatas, omelets, much like large flowing clothes, can cover a multitude of culinary sins. And then you tell people, you meant to do that. Now, I especially love playing with spices. I enjoy spice. And normally I will read a recipe and I'll look at what they're calling for spice and I'll say, you have got to be kidding. And I will up it, especially garlic. Half a clove of garlic. Are you kidding me? No, let's try 3 or 4 whole cloves and let's see what happens, right? Have you ever seen a recipe with a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper? Just add a 1/4 teaspoon of black. Who does that? Nobody does that. There are a couple of cuisines, however, where you really want to pay attention to the measurements, and that is Indian and Thai. And I love Indian food. I love Thai food. And I've played with Indian and Thai food. And what I have learned is you don't want to mess with that too much. When they tell you a 1/4 teaspoon of a particular spice, that's where you want to start. And chances are you don't want to go up. Not if you value your taste buds and want to hold on to them. Surprisingly, there is one food flavoring that really doesn't get a lot of press, not really a lot of advertising or popularity. That is salt. Right? Salt. Salt's not really a spice, it's not an herb, it's more of a mineral. And while there are a lot of varieties of salt and you can get kind of fancy with your salt, normally you just don't hear a lot about it. But if you leave out salt, or especially if you over-salt food, you will definitely hear about it and you will notice it. Now, salt, another interesting thing about salt is something I learned a long time ago, which surprised me. You use it in dessert. And I thought that is so strange. But what salt, the big thing with salt is it is supposed to enhance the flavor of whatever you're adding it to, even sweet stuff. Salt has several applications beyond the culinary world, too, and we'll get to that later. Apparently, Jesus thought a lot about salt because he used it as a metaphor in one of his teachings, and that's what we're looking at today. We're looking at the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, and verses 13 and 14. From the Message translation, we read these words of Jesus. Let me tell you while you're here. You are here to be salt seasoning that brings out the God flavors of this earth. If you lose your saltiness, how will people taste godliness? You've lost your usefulness and will end up in the garbage. Here's another way to put it. You're here to be light. You're here to bring out the God colors in the world. Now, these verses are at the conclusion of what is known as the Beatitudes, or what Father Richard Rohr calls the happy attitudes. So I'm going to take a minute and do a shameless commercial here. We're going to be taking a deep dive into the Beatitudes next month, starting February 16th, using Father Rohr's book, Jesus' Alternative Plan. And Lynn has ordered some of those for the bookstore, so they'll be coming in if you want to read it. Father Rohr tends to go pretty deep. So if you want to jump ahead in preparation for this, you can go to part 2, chapter 8, the happy attitudes. Or you can read the whole thing up to chapter 8. And I'll be doing the usual thing, setting a foundation and then getting into it. Okay? And I'll remind you of this before it happens again. Commercial break's over. Let's continue. Salt and light. Why would Jesus say we should be salt and light? We'll start with salt. In cooking, salt plays a crucial role, again, by enhancing the flavor of other ingredients, actually making food taste more like itself rather than just being salty. It's considered a fundamental building block of flavor. And what you may or may not be surprised to hear are all the different uses of salt beyond cooking. That's been a preservative throughout history. We know that, especially before, refrigeration became, widely available. Salt water is a disinfectant. Salt cleans. It can smother grease fires. It can absorb food stains from clothing. It cleans coffee pots, oven spills. Get this, it polishes wood and brass, kills poison ivy, deters ants, kills weeds, and cleans drains. Dang. And we put that stuff in our food. Who knew? According to some scholars, the role of salt in the Bible is relevant to understanding Hebrew society, not only in the Old Testament, but also the New Testament. Salt was and is a necessity for life, and back in the day, it was used not only in the ways we continue to use it, salt was also used as a component of ceremonial offerings. Salt used to be a unit of exchange as well. The Bible contains numerous references to salt, and in various contexts is used metaphorically to signify a lot of different things, among those being permanence, loyalty, fidelity, value, usefulness, and purification. So with all those things going for it, you probably shouldn't be too surprised that Jesus would use it as a metaphor in his teachings. It's also important to note a few other things about salt. Salt is never meant to be the main ingredient in cooking, right? Again, salt is meant to bring out the flavors of other foods, to bring out the best in whatever you add it to. So, while salt is definitely needed, there is such a thing as too much salt. And whenever there is too much salt, it tends to be pretty disgusting. And we want nothing to do with that, do we? That's why you often hear in cooking circles, you can always add more, but you can never take it out. I've learned that the hard way too. I think, that's part of the challenge with some forms of religion today too. That is, some religious folks are just too darn salty. When someone is described as salty, they're annoyed, they're bitter, they're angry, and they're resentful about something. And sometimes it's just the littlest things that can set people off, right? And we just say that they're salty. They're expressing negativity, and they're expressing it through their words and usually through their actions as well. And Jesus called these people out in the New Testament. It was the religious people that he called out. I've said this before. If you read the Gospels, some of Jesus' harshest words were for all those salty religious types. We see this salty behavior today as well. There's only one way, and it's our way. So if you want to go to heaven, you have to believe what we believe. And by the way, since we've got the in on how to get to heaven, we've also got the in on who ought to be in leadership in our government. So you have to vote the way we do, or you're not a patriot. And the list goes on. After a time, people get so much of that salt, they spit it out. And they want nothing to do with it. And unfortunately, sometimes they spit everything out, and they also don't want anything to do with church at all, spirituality, or God, and that is a shame. Now, while over-salting isn't helpful, neither is under-salting. What I mean by that is, while it's easier for us to sit here and kind of laugh and point fingers at those salty, conservative, usually religious people, there's another side to this, and unity kind of falls into that. Unity and never thought, we tend to undersalt sometimes. We soft pedal stuff that needs to be addressed, I believe, because we don't want to offend anybody. And we don't want people to think we're like those salty, conservative, religious types, right? So we kind of soft pedal stuff, and we don't often speak up when we should be speaking up. Because, see, if we speak up about stuff, especially about things like social justice issues, oh my God, that's too political. We can't do that in church and politics, don't mix. So no, Danny, we can't go there. So I'm going there. Here we go. Last month, you guys came through big time for stuffed animals for the Hall County Sheriff's Department. You guys are amazing. And you're collecting supplies for the Gateway Domestic Abuse Organization, the center, right? And you guys are amazing. We joined with Shalom Baharim and Atlantis Lodge, our two tenants, back during the fall or late summer to collect baking supplies and animal food, pet food for their, we joined in with them. That was great. You guys come through big time. And you know what? That's political. Why is it political? Because you know what? Politics goes so far beyond Republican and Democrat and conservative and liberal and red and blue and whatever color you want to put on it. To me, that is nothing more than a distraction. It's divisive, and it's like too much salt and too much light, and nobody wants anything to do with that. Politics, at its core, is about addressing infrastructure, systems, and social systems and improving them and bringing out the best in them. So when we collect stuff, we are being political, and we are being salt, and we are being light. Whether anybody knows who we are or not. Because you know what? That's not the point. The point is we are shining light on domestic abuse and on hunger and on other issues by our participation. Again, doesn't matter if they know who does it. You're being salt, you're being light. I am proud of you. And if anybody asks, yeah, we're kind of political that way. Now, let's move on to light. Not only did Jesus say he was the light of the world, but guess what? Jesus said, you are the light of the world. Isn't that great? Jesus had a lot of faith in us, didn't he? And we can apply some of those same lessons of salt to light. And by what I mean by that is some light is good and it's necessary, and too much light can be harmful, even blinding. And we see this dynamic play out in individuals as well as communities, right? You know, for example, have you ever heard somebody say, wow, that person has a big personality? Big personality. They are larger than life. And you know what? Sometimes we need that. We need people who are going to stand up, who are comfortable doing so, and speak out and be salt and be light in this world. Some people do that, and we need that sometimes. The big difference for me is, what is the focus? Look at the news. Look at some of our government leaders today, not just in the United States, but across the globe. Are they calling attention to an issue that needs to be addressed in a positive way? Are they calling attention to themselves? Look at me, I am the greatest. Look at me, I can do all things, and these other people, they're just evil, and they're bad, and they're wrong. It's me, it's my party, and my people. We are the saviors. What gets lost in there are the actual people who need help. That's not being salt, that's not being light, that's being too salty, and that is blinding people with the light, and folks are tired of it. The message gets lost because people are too focused on themselves and what is in it for them. That is not being salt, that is not being light, that is not what Jesus meant. Same question applies to spiritual communities. Is it all about us, or is it all about our message? Because there are plenty of places out there where it is truly all about them. And I don't think that's what Jesus had in mind. I don't think Jesus said for us to go out and be a salt and light in the world just so we could get more money and get more people in our communities. Okay? Now, that said, stay with me. That said, if our message gets out there and that draws more people, and people are drawn to the message, and more people show up on Sundays, and more people decide to financially support us, and hey, I'm there for it. I am all about it. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's not the focus. Remember, salt is never the main ingredient. Salt is the background ingredient which brings out the best. The best kind of light. Light at its best is illuminating. Light does not make us see anything. I want you to hear that. Light does not make us see anything. Light enables us to see what we've missed before. Maybe because we felt lost in the dark, or maybe we were blinded by too much harsh light. Sometimes, folks, the best light is a soft light, a comforting light, which illuminates and just sits with us, comforting us and warming us. Now, sometimes we need to turn up the wattage. I get that. Sometimes we need to stand up, speak out, and turn up the wattage, and that's okay. Because what was it that MLK Jr. said? Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. So sometimes you got to turn it up a little bit. There's a balance. Got to turn up the light. And who is the light? We're the light. Jesus said so, right? You are the light. And since we say that unity is based on the teachings of Jesus and the power of prayer, might be a good idea to listen to our master teacher, huh? Sounds like a plan to me. One more thing. I've thrown a lot at you again. If being salt and being light sounds a little bit too overwhelming to you, consider this. Some people gravitate more toward being salt, being background. Some people tend more toward light, being more out front and speaking up. Personally, I think all of us have a little bit of both in us, but some people gravitate one way or the other. That's okay. You do you, boo. If you are salt, be salt. If you are light, be light. If you're a little bit of both, be a little bit of both. The point is, we are called to be salt and light. We are here to bring out the God flavors in the world and the God colors in this world. So, since I have not given you a homework assignment in a while, and Mary is going to be so upset because Mary likes homework assignments and she's not here today. Here's your reflection assignment for the week. Reflect on these questions. What does it mean for me to be salt and light in the world? What does it mean for me to be salt and light in this world? What does it mean for Unity of Gainesville to be salt and light in this world? Because you know what? It's not about me, and it's not about you. It's about us. All right? How would that manifest? What would that look like? Get some ideas going in your head. And then be part of that manifestation. And yes, you can. Be salt, be light. You do you, boo. Amen. God bless you. Namaste. Amen.
Thank you for all the prayers answered. Thank you for all the salt and light. It's all